Today's video is brought to you by Casper mattress. They are obsessively engineered for outrageous comfort. The mattress combines pressure-relieving memory foam for a sleep surface that contours to your body and keeps you cool. Buying a Casper mattress is completely risk-free. Casper offers free delivery and free returns with a 100-night home trial. For a special offer of $50 off your next mattress, check out casper.com/Jimmy DiResta. Be sure to use promo code Jimmy DiResta. Now follow along as me and Taylor build this bed. This is her original design. We collaborated on some of the details, but the concept is hers. And I ordered metal online, and I had the pieces cut mostly to size. I had to trim some of them, but I'm just tacking them together. This first corner is sort of my prototype, and I'm not exactly sure what I'm up against. So I'm cautiously taking an approach to building this corner, and I'm just using the hand grinder there to cut off these corners. And then I'm going to weld them together. And this is actually going to be the corner brace for 1.5 inch wooden planks. There's a lot of decisions that go into making the proper scale. We used 8-inch high steel on the outside edge there with a 1-inch tube initially, but we realized that 1-inch tube just looked too wimpy. So we jumped it up to what you see there. This is a 1.5-inch steel tube, and the scale was much better. All along just trying to find the best way. And so now that I am happy with the corner, I'm cutting all my parts that I need to make the other 3 corners. Making that first corner was the most difficult one because it was the one I was really trying to figure out. Now that I have all my parts cut, I'm just kind of throwing them together fairly quickly. Just tacking it as I go along. I don't need big giant beads. Tacks are more than strong enough. And so now I'm just moving along pretty quickly with the rest of the legs. Now I'm going to town making the second foot. I'm getting a better idea of what I'm doing, so whenever you make a lot of things like this, I always say you go to school on the first one. And as you get better and better at the parts, by the time you're done, you're an expert at it. And so this time I'm using a steel brick there to give me square. Each one of those pieces are getting welded to the larger plate, tacked from the outside. Anytime you weld, the metal will bend towards that weld. So that's why I tacked the outside first, so they kind of opened up a little bit. And now I'm welding the inside, and then they kind of come to the middle, so then they're all fairly straight. If you make every part as square as possible, each time you attach, try and make it as square as possible. All those little conscientious decisions just go into making the entire unit square and straight. And now these are going to be the poles that hold up the headboard. These are 5 feet tall. I just wanted to show you the whole process. It's a little redundant here, but I just wanted you to see what goes into making all these various aspects of what ultimately looks like a fairly simple bed. And so the weight is already starting to build up. All those plates are 1/4 inch thick. Pipes are about 1/8 inch thick wall. And so now I have to begin thinking about the wood. In the back of my container is my wood library, and I have 1.5 by 8 inch wide sapele boards. Sapele is the same boards that are used to make cigar boxes, so that's what these smell like. And you see those bandsaw marks? I like those bandsaw marks. I'm going to keep them in the design. You'll notice here I keep forgetting the size of the mattress. I want to make sure I have one chance to cut these pieces and to cut them correctly. I want to make sure I don't mess that up. So it's 75 by 54. And I kept looking on my phone, so at one point I just wrote it on my hand. And so I rough cut all my sizes. This is my 1911 crescent planer. It's 18 inches wide. And I'm planing these pieces just so they fit inside of the braces, the corner braces. I originally was going to plane them smooth, but once I really started taking a close look at those bandsaw marks from the sawmill, I liked them and I decided to leave them in. This beautiful antique planer is so heavy I don't want to keep moving it around, so I'm leaving it outside until my new shop is built. I keep it covered with motor oil so it doesn't rust. And now I'm just checking my fit, and I'm ready for a test assemble, just to kind of get a size and a scale to make sure that everything is going in the accurate direction. Something like this, you can design it on paper, but once you start putting it together, you really get a better insight as to exactly what it's going to look like. And so here we are just clamping it together. I know that we're going to bolt those corners, but I don't want to just jump right in and start drilling holes. Slow approach is better because you can make better design decisions. And now we take a step back, we can really see it's coming together. We make a few more design decisions, and now I begin to sand it. Those bandsaw marks leave a nice little ridge when I sand them off a little bit. And we're going to use water poly, and since it is so cold out, we're painting in the house. It's about 15 degrees outside, so this paint would not work out there. It would freeze before it got a chance to dry. Now I'm making the headboard. I'm working at night outside and under a big floodlight in front of my garage. I was under a little bit of a time constraint with this one because I was leaving for a couple days, so I wanted to make sure I got this build done before I left for about a week. And so those little corner picture frame brackets came in real handy here. Those are got at a flea market. And so that's the square that's going to make up the headboard itself. And we need something to fasten the insert to, so I made these tabs. And they're getting welded into place. And I tack them quick, and then I weld them. So I tack them and I weld them just to make sure they're going to stay in the right spot. The headboard is going to be a piece of plywood with 1/4-inch leather attached to it, or laminated to it. So the headboard is going to be this broad color of leather. It actually comes out really nice. And now this piece of steel is going to be welded to the uprights. Taylor had an interesting idea with her design in the way that she wanted the headboard to appear floating. So by welding those brackets low down, if the bed had a bunch of pillows on it, those brackets would most likely be covered, and the headboard would look like it's floating between the two poles. And so I'm just cleaning up some of the welds, but interestingly enough here I had to bevel those two pieces so that the headboard would sit down at a level flush with the front of the two poles. So I beveled those two pieces, and then the whole headboard dropped down in a little bit deeper, which is where it needed to be. And so now I'm taking my final look at the assembled parts, and I just keep eyeballing it from every direction to make sure that everything's square. You'll notice I didn't have the best welding table there, so those pipes are important to keep them square to each other, parallel. And now it's the next morning, and I'm just cleaning up there's a little bit of rust on the stock, drilling my holes for the headboard, plugging the holes. This is some scraps of Pele. I just hammer them in. And off camera I go back, I drop a little crazy glue around that edge and then sand it off. Same thing here, just dropping some wood in there, hand cutting it off because it seems to be the easiest way to do it outside in the field. And then I sand and grind the top of those. And now I'm just cleaning off all the oil and all the grit and the sharp edges and the rust. The cleaner you get the metal, the much better the blackening system works. The blackening agent will work better on much cleaner metal. And here I'm just pegging the bottom of the legs so that when I put felt pads they have something to stick to. Now this piece of wood doesn't ultimately become the headboard, but I use it in the process of actually making the headboard. You'll see in a minute. Now I'm drilling the holes through the 1/4-inch steel that comes each corner bracket. And now because we took the time to clean the metal so cleanly, so nicely, the blackening agent works really quickly and evenly. As long as that metal is nice and clean and even, the blackening will look nice and clean. And you see how much darker it gets over a few minutes. Just finishing up drilling those holes out, preparing the bed. And since again it was so cold out, Taylor blackened the headboard parts in the house. Kitchen is the warmest room in our house, so that's why we kept working in there. Just getting it ready. There's a lot of details. You got to make sure you cover everything. And now this is 1/4-inch leather, and the 1/4-inch leather is going to get laminated to that wood for the headboard, and it takes quite a bit to cut through that leather. But we use the headboard as the trace so that we have the exact same shape. And even with a sharp razor blade, that's really tough. And now we're using Titebond wood glue just to glue the leather directly to the surface of the wood. And then there's that piece I cut. I'm just using it as a clamp just to make sure we have some good adhesion everywhere. And that leather might have a couple of ripples in it, but it goes away once you get a nice good glue clamp. And now we're ready to put the headboard into the frame. You can see the nice contrast between the blackener on the steel. That's Presto blackener, by the way. And now we're ready to put the headboard together to the rest of the bed. These side rails that I'm about to bring in, I have not drilled them yet. I figured I would drill them in place when we were doing the final assembly. And Willie's just going to get the other corner brace. And that's Yoko running around. She's anxious to see the new bed, as I am. And now we're just drilling the holes. These are 1/2-inch holes, and we are using flathead bolts from the other side with a cap nut, a brass cap nut. And you'll see this brass cap nut comes into play right here. These are all from McMaster-Carr, which is where you buy all the sexy hardware in the world. And I waited to put it together inside just because it was cold out, and I knew that once it was going to bolt it together, it wasn't going to be easy to move around, so we figured we'd bring the pieces in manageable sizes and then get it all assembled right there and then on the floor. And putting in our last piece. And because those steel pipes, remember I banged maple up inside the ends of those steel pipes, I was able to put felt pads. So I don't want to damage that floor. I want to make sure that I have nice felt pads at the bottom of each one of those hollow steel tubes. And it works just fine. I'm able to adjust the bed around the room without scratching the floor. Just putting our final corner brace in place, tightening everything up. Taylor's going over the paint with what's called permalac. It's just a lacquer cover. Protects and traps the blackener in there, protects the metal, and gives it a final sheen of a matte finish. And now this is some tongue and groove siding that I had, just sort of wainscoting that I had left over, so I cut them all to size since I didn't have much else to do with them, so I made them the under mattress support. And just to double test it, I kind of run around on top of it to make sure it's strong enough. And since it was a little bit bouncy, I put a piece of wood underneath there that telegraphs the weight to the floor. And now here we are again, doing our unboxing, and we're all so excited. And we brought the mattress inside about an hour before this, but it still was very, very cold. It was outside. And it took a few more minutes to pop open and come to life than it should have if it was a warmer day. We're both very proud of this design. Taylor actually is wanting to sell this in her line on her website. She's going to refine the design, we're going to refine the manufacturing techniques, and Taylor's going to come up with a price point, and we're going to offer this bed frame for sale. I want to thank Casper Mattress and thank Timber, that's my cat Timber. Thank you Casper Mattress for sponsoring this video. Please support my sponsors. If you support my sponsors, it affords me the ability to keep working in the shop and making videos. So thank you all very much for sticking along with me. This was a long build and it was a fun one. I hope you learned a thing or two. I know I did. Thank you.